Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. We're here on a Monday for another MOPs Monday where we try to play around with the motion operators tool set and see what we can get up to. My name is Peter. I am the host of Houdini Hangout. Welcome. Hope you're having a great day today. Glad to have you join us on the stream this evening. Tonight, I had a bit of a short announcement before the stream because I had no idea what I was doing and a million other things going on. So, sorry if it was a little last minute. Usually don't try to do that, but hopefully we'll get up to some interesting stuff this evening and give it a shot. See what we can do. This evening, I think what we're going to do is first talk a little bit about a couple of, maybe underutilized nodes in the MOPs toolset that can allow for, reorienting your objects and moving around your pivots and things like that. We'll look at some of those and just kind of see what we can get up to with that, kind of play around with those a little bit. And then after that, we're going to play around and try to get some condensation on an object and kind of see if we can animate it, do something interesting, and then, maybe even do a little simulation type thing, something like that. We'll see what we can get up to with it. No promises, as I've had probably about 15 minutes to think about it. So, unfortunately, this is a little bit fly by the seat of our pants stream tonight, but here we are. Hey, Johannes, welcome to the stream. Nice to have you. Good evening. Welcome. That is kind of the idea for this evening. It's yeah, exactly. The sun is still out. We are in the daylight savings time now, and all the daylight is saved. We saved it, all of it. It was actually funny because my wife woke up a little late, and sometimes, I'll be honest, she enjoys her sleep, and so she sometimes will wake up a little bit late, and she woke up, and I think it was like 9 a.m. or something like that, it was actually 10, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's 10 a.m." and I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, and I was like, how'd you enjoy that, losing that hour of sleep last night? And she was like, oh, that's today. So it's always funny when, it's pretty easy to miss that whole daylight savings thing if you don't pay attention to any of the news or things like that, which is a smart idea on my wife's part to not pay attention to social media or news or anything like that. So anyways, yes. So we've got a little bit of extra time. It is still daylight outside, which is pretty wild. I have a window right next to me, and boy, it's bright out there. I live in, obviously in a bit north, and I think the stat is that if we stayed at with daylight savings time, I think sunrise would get really weird here in the winter, and I think the sun would rise at like 8 something in the morning, like during the like darkest days of winter kind of thing. So so I kind of do hope we don't switch the clocks anymore at some point, but also that would be really weird too. So there's positives and negatives. Hey Zach, how's it going, man? Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you. Anyways, enough chit chat. I've had one more thing to note. I think I've done 3 presentations in the past 2 business days. One of them being a 4-hour workshop and another 2-hour presentations on different topics. So I've been, hey Carlos, welcome. I've been doing a lot of presenting recently, a lot of talking to people. So hopefully my brain is going to hold up and I don't just get all loopy on you guys. But we'll see what happens this evening. But as always, first of all, you can join the Discord. It's at HoudiniHangout.com. There's a link there that you can get and join the Discord and ask questions and you know, whatever there, give suggestions, which thank you to Pascal for the suggestion for this evening. Huge thank you. Hey, Lawn Flamingo, that's an awesome name. Hello. Yeah. You can join the Discord. As with my normal disclaimer, anyone, please feel free to drop questions or comments in the chat. There is, there's no right or wrong questions. There's no dumb questions here with Houdini. As long as you're asking a question about Houdini, it's not really a dumb question here. So always happy to entertain those, see what we can get up to, and be able to clarify things for people, because if you have the question, probably someone else does as well. And we like to make sure that things are clear. And that's kind of the idea. So safe place to ask questions. And with that, I guess we'll jump in and do a little bit of Houdini stuff. So let's do it. Big dramatic switch as I didn't change my fade to black. So first, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of nodes that Henry Toadstorm brought to my attention that would be good for us to kind of just have a little chat about and just talk about, so that people know that they're there, what they do, that they exist, that type of a thing. So those two nodes were the, let's see, I'm going to add, I'm in a geometry node already. I started this file and saved it and forgot I was in a geo node. So those two are going to be the reorient node, this one, MOPs reorient, and MOPs pivot. So we've used the MOPs pivot before, and this is a really helpful node for a lot of reasons, because if we have geometry whose center point, right, we're looking at packed primitives, right? If we have a geometry whose center point is not oriented properly to our geometry, based on whether we want it to be, at the bottom, top, whatever. This is a way that we could certainly adjust that. And I think we might have done that in the last MOPS Monday, if I'm remembering correctly, but we'll just kind of briefly touch on it again. But so let's see here. Let's just grab a MOPS instancer here, and we'll just kind of make something really basic to throw into this. So MOPS instancer, let's do something so we can see sort of its orientation. We'll do maybe a, I'm thinking of all of the LOPS nodes right now in my brain, because I just had a chat about Solaris with a bunch of people. So I'm like thinking of all of those. All right, let's do a tube, and we will like kind of cinch in the top. All right, so. Hey, how's it going? Hey, Nito, welcome. All right, so let's just do this. We'll just kind of close in the top here, and we'll probably put down a little fuse there just to make sure that we're joining that top. Hey, Justin, welcome. Glad to have you live. All right, so we've got our MOPS instancer here. We can change the size here. Let's see, we're going to just do a grid. Let's see here. We're just going to make it a little bit bigger, make the steps a little bit bigger as well. We'll maybe do just a few of these like this. We'll do like 1 and 1 like that. Cool. All right, so we'll just make some of these, right? And so with our MOPS pivot, what this allows us to do is kind of, oh, you know what? I should put a end cap on that. That'll probably be a little bit nicer to do. Cool. All right. So what we can do then is adjust the pivot position for these, right? So we can do obviously a couple things here. We could center the pivot. We could align it to the bounding box, whether that be in, let's see here. If I change this to, there we go. This will probably be a little easier to see. Can I just do, no, not wireframe bounding box, like that. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to do this so we can see it a little bit better. But what this does is it changes around the pivots for us, right? So we can change it to either, we could do something like this where it's, the pivot of this object is centered up at the top there. And just to kind of visualize this, let's do a MOPs randomize here. We can just kind of give it some like maybe random orientations or something. Let's do this. And so there we go. We're getting some random orientations here. We can just do that. We can just add a seed here. There we go. It's a little more crazy and, you know, whatever. So obviously we can start with them up here. We could have it change down here. And then these are kind of going to be like arrows, like pointing in those directions. Let's give this a little more space here. Let's do like 2 and 2, and we'll just space these guys out a little more. Great. And so if we look at this, now we can see they're kind of pointing in all sorts of random directions. We can do this based on any, you know, any part of our bounding box, right? We could move it in X, Y, Z, any of those types of things. So this is a really, really useful node for that, from that side of things. And I think probably what you would run into the most is using this to just change like its Y position along the object, you know, based on where you have it sitting at the kind of origin of your scene, right? When you bring these objects in. But the cool thing is this could also work for, I think really any packed primitives that you might be working with, right? Any packed geometry. So you could use this MOPs pivot to adjust the pivot of any primitive. It doesn't have to be something that you're like thinking of in a standard kind of MOPs centric view. Maybe you have an alembic that you're bringing in from disk and it's a packed primitive or whatever. You should be able to use this with that. You know, it's basically something that's going to work on packed geometry, right? So so that's something to think about too when you're kind of working with these types of nodes and things like that. I think I'm going to change this. There we go. I think this is actually going to be a better way for us to do that. Sorry, should have done that before. Just wasn't thinking straight. The fixed number is a little bit easier to visualize. So here is our here's our pivot, right? So our pivots change. We could change the randomize, you know, all that kind of stuff. So cool. But the other one to talk about is this MOPs reorient, right? So what does this do? So the idea here is that you can have attributes that are coming from, you know, whether you've edited from that specific geometry or if we're pulling it from a reference geometry, we can actually kind of take their orientation and transfer it over to these primitives here. So it's sort of like calculating your orientation and doing like an attribute transfer in one. And that's doing the reorient for us. And then obviously it's also setting the orient on that packed geometry. So this can be really helpful. And in the documentation, you can kind of see a little bit of how you might use this here. So packed primitives, we'd obviously put them in there, and we need another input for this. So let's try this with the reference geometry. So we have this kind of grid of objects here, but if we were going to transform them, right, they're going to transform, oh, sorry, I'm going to do MOPs transform. If we were going to transform them, they would translate based on their kind of local space orientation, right? So they're going to, so if we do them in Y, let's do that. They're going to move sort of in the direction that their Y orientation is. In this case, they've all been reoriented randomly, so they're going to randomly move in those orientations. But what if we didn't want them to move like that? Well, we'd need to reorient them in some specific way, right? So this is where this node will come in, right? So say we wanted all these objects to move in some other way, but have this random orientation, right? You could certainly uncheck world space, but that still sort of keeps us locked then to our standard X, Y, and Z axes, and it will make things a little trickier to play around with. Obviously, you could do some expressions and things like that, but kind of the idea a lot of times with these MOP setups is to try to make these a little easier to work with for artists and things like that, right? So let's take a look at this and see if we couldn't kind of use a different geometry to you know, change how these objects are going to move. So what we're gonna let's try a sphere here. Let's do this. Let's do a sphere. And I'm gonna change this to be in polygon mode and just give it a few more. I probably didn't need that much, but give it a few more of those, and then up the uniform scale a little bit. Let's go back to our smooth wire shaded. I think we've got the idea with all of our orientations and the point positions of the pivot. So so we've got this sphere here, and we're gonna set a couple of attributes on here. We could take from our reference attribute a quaternion. We could also do 2 vectors if we wanted to, n and up. So these are kind of the standard orientation attributes for instancing, right? So what we could do is something like a poly frame here and just kind of create an orientation. And let's see, we could just do something like this, n and up. Let's see how that kind of shakes out here for us. We'll just look at our n attribute like that. That's going to be up, or this is going to be out. And then if we look at, if we look at our up axis, that's going to be our up axis. Now in this case, I'm pretty sure that our n axis is going to be equivalent to the z-axis for our orientation. We really kind of want that direction to be equivalent to, we want that to be our y-axis, right? This blue, to be able to move these things maybe away in a sphere. So let's take a look at this again, and we'll move this down here after the reorient. And let's do this, plug this in, and what we should be able to do here, let's see here, distant threshold. Okay. Okay. So, oh, right. We don't have, right. So that's not actually, I'm like, why are these all pointing up? That's not the attribute we're actually looking at. All right. So what we're setting is the, let's see, what are we setting here? We're setting a MOPs orient here. Let me just see if that's changing. Let's just type in MOPs star just to keep those up. And yes, it looks like we're doing a MOPs orient there, so that's great. Cool. All right, so it's setting that up. That should be passing along from the closest surface there to these attributes. And now, if we do this in local space, we should be able to translate them. Nope. Does it have to be in world space? No. Oh, right, because we didn't change those attributes, so they're just randomly kind of moving around because the polyframe is using let me turn this on. So it's using these yellow attributes, so we actually want to swap those two. So let's do this. We'll do up, and this will be n. I think that should work. And now if we try to transform them, let's see what happens here. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to turn this off real quick and just see if that helps us at all, if that randomize isn't screwing everything up. Let me just see. Yep, that's what that was. Looks like that's what it was doing. Yeah, hey, Andre. Nice to have you on the stream. Okay, so this randomize was actually what was kind of screwing us up here. So, I'm just trying to think of how we could do that instead. It's interesting because this randomize was actually, I think, hurting us here. So if we do this and this, that should be fine. Just double check that this is. Yeah, it's definitely this randomize here that's goofing things up. Because as we do this here, you can see that they're all now moving away from the sphere, right? So they're all kind of moving spherically away from that. And if we were to move this down here, like this. Oh, hey, welcome, welcome. I think that's Sihat, maybe? Welcome to the stream. Nice to have you. I'm getting a couple messages here. I'm just going to turn my phone off. There we go. Sorry. So this is the idea of what this node can do. We can certainly use this to kind of push things away from objects, you know, randomly. We could also so Pascal is asking to use the MOPs pivot on normal geometry. You'd pack it first, then use MOPs pivot, then unpack it again. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could use it on. I mean, MOPs geometry is packed geometry, so it works on. Oh, like jihad. I see jihad. Cool. Okay, got it. Sorry, I try to be nice and say hello to people, but sometimes I get the name a little wrong. But that's cool. Jihad. Okay. Well, welcome. So Pascal, yeah. So you would definitely need to have packed geometry if you're working with anything ahead of time. There is also the MOPs. What is it? Is it convert? Is that the one? Yeah. So this MOPs convert would take geometry and convert it into, take a whole bunch of connected geometries and pack them into packed primitives, basically, or in this case, packed fragments. Or if you unchecked this box, I think it would create packed geometry. Let me just see. I'll just wear this in here. So this is a packed fragment. If we uncheck this, it would make packed geos. Yep. And there are some limitations with packed fragments with like coloring and things like that. But what we could do here as well, this could be our transforms, like we could do 10 or something like that. And if we did a MOPs shape fall off here, something like this, and use this to do fall off, we would then be able to have this sort of drive that, right? So we could have this like that, right? You could do stuff like that where they would move away based on the reference kind of orientation of that geometry. You could also input, a point attribute from something else here and have that swap over. Now, in this case, the point attributes, it would be, I think, looking up the same point attribute. So I think what you would want, I haven't played with this one yet, but I think the other one is a little easier to visualize what's going on. But I think with the point attribute, you would actually like edit the orientation in some way of these, and then that would kind of reorient them without like moving them or anything like that. So I feel like you could do something. Just trying to think of what the best way of doing that would be. Be a little. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what a good. I can't think of a good like visualization of that right now. But basically, you could just edit the point attributes and bring them back over and reorient the objects that way, without having to do too much extra craziness. But in this case, it's pulling from certain points on this sphere, I think, and that's why we're getting weird directions and things like that. So, anyways, reference geometry, that does it, and we can kind of animate it like this. So, sort of an interesting little look into some of the orientation type stuff. Which is kind of neat to do. Oh, we went back to something else here. What just happened there? Oh, this randomize. I could turn that on. Is MOPs affected at all by Solaris Karma XPU? Yeah, I mean, you could certainly, you could use geometry that has been manipulated through MOPs in Solaris. There's no reason it wouldn't work. What would happen if you brought it over into Solaris? In fact, we can just do that real quick, just since your question is an interesting one. Here, I will... maybe here's what I'll do, too, to make this a little bit more interesting. We'll put this transform at the end to randomize it, maybe. Oh, Right. We don't want to enable the fall. We'll just randomly orient them. Let's do this. We'll animate this across like so. Boom. And maybe, I don't know, we'll just do it like 120 or something. Doesn't matter. Cool. Nice. All right, so we'll do that. There's our little random orientation thing. That's actually probably the way that it would make more sense to have the random orientation in there as well after the fact. So these are just kind of shooting out of the way. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, but, you know, maybe if we did something like that and just moved this back a little more, move this forward a little more like that. It'll just be a little more interesting maybe to do it at like an angle. Shoop. They move away in a sphere, even though they're randomly oriented. They're still kind of moving away in a spherical shape. All right, so let's do that. We'll do a null. And let's just look at how this comes in Solaris, because I think it'll make sense if you see how it works. But should be hopefully fairly straightforward. What I would say is that you want to make sure that this geometry up here is much better formed than this simple little bit of kind of junk that I did here. You'd probably want to have some sort of UVs on it, normal, like so. You'd probably want to add a normal onto it. That would be smart. Probably UVs, things like that rendering would want. But anyways, there's actually that looks much better now with the normal, so that makes sense. Okay, so we got our MOPs geo there. I'm just going to put a LOP network right down here. And if we go in here, give it a second. It's just was just trying to transfer over. So if we do a SOP import here of that geometry, our out MOPs geo should be no problem. Comes in just fine. And here we have our MOPs instancer. That's sort of this looks a little scary, right? Because you're like, what in the world is going on here? But this is actually from the from our all of these attributes here. And one thing that this is going to be doing is it's going to go away. It is going to bring in the name. Let's see here. Let's turn this off. I'll show you probably what is causing that. There's probably an attribute in here. Yep. This object path. This should be where it's getting that information from. So it's seeing that and sort of making up that hierarchy for this object. So that's okay. We could certainly work with that. I'm just thinking of what that might be. Okay. So instead here, let's take off, let's see if we can take off this path attribute. There we go. So that's part of what it's doing, is it's seeing that path attribute and it's setting up all of these hierarchies from that. This might be a little hard to see. I'll just move this up there. But if you bring this in, this is going to instance it all, and these are called instanceable references. You can change this right here with packed primitives, right? Because we're bringing in packed primitives. So right now it's creating native instances, which are instanceable references. That's just their technical name. But what we could also do is do a point instancer. And this is going to feel probably a lot more comfortable for you, because here we have our instances, which are all defined by points, by positions. And so each of these is going to be referenced there by point positions. And so that's where our instances are coming from. It's all kind of working the way we would hopefully expect there. And then underneath this, the little prototypes, those are the pieces, the individual pieces. So if we had multiple packed pieces that we had switched between in MOPs, that would show up there under our prototypes. The same thing is true if we went through the native instances. Those would be under this prototype as well. You can see here we have P0 and then P00, P01, P02, you know, so on and so forth. So those are all instances of this piece here. So anyways, that's kind of how it would come in. And I probably would say like MOP stuff or something like that, so that this has a nice name that it's using there. But that would be how you'd bring it in. And then from there, it's all just, you know, shading, texturing, that type of stuff, lighting, all of that. And it would all work exactly the same way. But just knowing about how those things would come in to the USD kind of workspace, the Solaris, you know, stage. So hopefully that answers your question, but it certainly is an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about that too much, but it is a super interesting question, because if you're doing motion graphics work, you probably want to use XPU. So because that's going to be great and fast. So this should all work just fine with that. And now that we've got it in native USD kind of assets, you should be all set. And yeah, there's the only thing it's kind of yelling at us about here is there's no save path, and you could just merge it into the existing layer, and that will make it happy. And basically, that's just basically where are those files going if you saved them, the USD files to disk. So it's kind of a nice. I usually do that a lot of times, just merge the SOP into the current layer. Anyways, that's a USD question for another day, but you could certainly grab this file afterwards from the Discord server and take a look at that if you want, just to see how it comes in. But that is how I would bring that in, and it's basically just telling it to ignore this this object path here that it might be looking at otherwise. Great. So that should be that. That hopefully gives you a little sense for how some of these orientation attributes work. Kind of interesting. Me and Henry were talking about it. It's not the sexiest topic, but you know, it's kind of interesting to see how that works and how you can kind of play around with things. So that we will just call that orient and pivot, something like that. Super straightforward, nothing too exciting, but there we go. Okay, cool. So just realizing like there we go. Just move myself down a little. All right, so that was one thing, but I think the other thing that we're going to play around with here is doing a doing some sort of a an example where we have like maybe like a some sort of a condensation type effect on a surface, right? So let's see what we can get up to here and see what we can do. So let's do geometry, add another geo node down, and we'll say, I'll just call this sim. I don't know if it will be a simulation, but we'll see. We'll see what we get up to. So I think what I'm going to do is just grab a tube, if I can type. Just grab a tube here. That'll be sort of our geometry that we're going to work on, you know, that we're going to use as our condensation object. I think it makes sense. It's cans are pretty straightforward, pretty normal for doing things like this. Let's do like 48 around, so we've got a pretty smooth object all the way around. That should work fine for us, I think. And let's do now I'm not doing the top and bottom just because I think we mainly want the condensation to be on the sides of this. So it's kind of, at least in my experience, it makes sense to not, you know, try to just, you know, give it just a subset of your geometry. So if I was using a can or something like that, I would probably, you know, isolate just the section that I wanted for these condensation drips to be like animated down. Like, yeah, maybe they'll exist on the top and bottom, but we'll just kind of focus on the sides for right now, because obviously you could do it static on the top and bottom and that'd be fine. Like, it's not going to be rolling down the top or anything like that. But on the sides, certainly you would see that. So let's move this. Okay, thank you. Let's do a match size and just get this set on the kind of on the ground plane here, just to make it a little more nice visually. There we go. All right, and let's do, I think honestly what we're going to do is just do a basic sphere for right now, just some small spheres, and just kind of get those instanced on this can. So let's do that. Let's do a let's just grab a sphere, and we don't want this to be overly, you know, high resolution. I think we'll probably end up remeshing this afterwards just to kind of make it a little more interesting. So let's just do a polygon. Maybe we'll do like frequency of 4. I don't know, just a guess. Let's bring this down in size a bit because we don't need it to be very, very big. So that's probably too big even. We'll make it something like that, and then we'll probably make some smaller ones as well. Okay, so there's our sphere. Let's do a null here and say, just give us a little somewhere to do something interesting here. So let's do this. And what am I doing? Sorry, my brain shut off for a second there. Just was like, what am I doing? Okay, so let's grab the MOPs instancer. Oh, I said I was definitely feeling it today. Sorry. Okay, so let's grab this. This will be easy enough because we should be able to use this to just kind of scatter some instances on this geometry. There's no reason to kind of reinvent the setup here. So let's do distribution. We're going to do this on a mesh. The template object is going to go in there. Cool. And so we're starting to get somewhere with this. Okay, cool. So obviously way too many. So let's bring this down a little. That's too few. Let's see what feels like a good number. Probably somewhere in here. So this is, under the hood is doing some scattering and things like that. And I think what we want to do is turn these relax iterations way down because we don't want it to look like this, but we also don't want it to be like, here's these even drips on your surface. They're all perfectly equal. So let's just see where we can go with this. And there's a few different ways you could do that, right? You could do change your relax iterations. You could also scale the radii of it too. So we could kind of push them out a little bit like this, something along that line is sort of working for us, I think. So interestingly, let's see here. I just want to see how that is referencing. That's like, it's interesting. I'm just looking at the scale of the radii by the scale of what the actual uniform scale of this is, and I was just curious that the how that works. I wonder if that's because we're doing 10 iterations. That must be what it is. Interesting. Hadn't thought of that. All right, let's maybe push them apart just a little more because I don't think we want them to be right on top of each other. So let's do this. Maybe we'll do like 0.55, and that'll give us a little bit more interest. Maybe even some more. Something like... Sorry, just kind of figuring this out as I go along here. That feels like a little more random. So we're getting somewhere there. All right, let us do something a bit more interesting here. So let's take these and this. I'll just control click on that. Hey, Chaos, welcome to the stream. Nice to have you. Okay, so we've got this instancer here. Let's see what we can get up to. So what we could do is we could just do a MOPs transform modifier, and we could just randomly, let's see, no, sorry, the MOPs randomize, and we could just randomize the uniform scale of these, right? And that's just going to give us sort of this min and max value here. Like so, and allow us to be able to start making some of these, make some of these different scales and sizes. We can change the seed, and it's just, this is completely random, right? So there's that option to do, but I think what might maybe be a bit more interesting is if we instead did, let's see here. I'm going to go into the MOPs fall off, and I think we're going to do let's try a noise fall off here. And I'm going to preview the fall off here so we can see it. And let us change the frequency of this. Maybe make the frequency a little higher like that. And let's see, and then we'll do a MOPs transform modifier. And then we can use that to adjust the uniform scale of these certain ones that have kind of been selected by this. And in fact, I think if we do a remap, can do maybe an auto min and max, and that's good because that's going to really redistribute these evenly. It's going to normalize kind of these attributes. So now you'll see we've got kind of the full range from the kind of blue to the white going on here. So now if we take this and kind of adjust the frequency, you're going to see that, I mean, we could make it quite regular where like small drips are or small condensation beads are kind of all congregating together. We could, let's see here. We could also up this a bit and kind of make it, closer to what it was before, where it's a bit like totally random. You can sort of play around with this however you would want to. And you could even, if you wanted to, have something where you would maybe have some condensation that might maybe grow along a surface or something like that. That could be kind of an interesting idea here. So let's try that. Actually, that's kind of an interesting idea. We could maybe grow these along the surface. So there is a MOPs spread fall off, and from that we could do a start point mode. So we can do this a couple different ways. We could go with the we could do this with the looks like with the input MOPs. We could do this, and then we could start with a input point. Let's see here. We could just do, let's just try 0 and see where that gets us. Let's preview the fall off from here. Where's 0? No. Animate. Spread. Let's see, where's that coming from? Yeah, there we go. So we could do something like this, right, where we have another fall off that's going to spread around this. This is coming from the point cloud, and sort of, is this going across? Hey, DTS, welcome to the stream. Nice to have you. No, it's actually going across the surface connectivity. No, it's going across. That's working out fine. I guess it is technically just going radially from there, but it looks actually kind of cool. So you could do this, right? You could do this kind of a spread fall off here where you'd have a start point and have it spread across. Then if we did another transform, do a MOPs transform modifier here. We could have those sort of, let's see here. We can have this uniform scale come down. And then as we spread that, right, so we want that to invert. So let's do that. We will remap this, we'll fit this, and we will just invert it. And now as we animate this across, we'll see that these will obviously... Oh, sorry. No, I had it the right way. Sorry, I'm doing... Where'd I do that? Didn't I do that? Oh, maybe I didn't. I'm losing my mind. There we go. All right, cool. There we go. So we could do that. I'm going to just turn this down a little bit. Maybe we'll do like 96. And I'm just going to animate this spread. Across like that. And we could also do a MOPs delay, I believe. And this could be cool to wait a second. No, that's not the one I wanted. MOPs. I think it was the spring modifier that I wanted. Yep. That's what I wanted. So this is actually what I would want it to do. So let's do something like this, and we can get a weird little like setup like that. And we don't want it to go so crazy. So let's just, sorry, I always try to remember how this works. I think we want to have more damping. Nope. There we go. A little more mass. I always forget what all these spring settings do. Shows how much MoGraph work I do these days. But there we go. We've got some, drops kind of scaling across this surface. Now you could also do it, like say you wanted it to do something like, now if we wanted to use this actual surface to grow that along, now in this case it's a tube, so we're not going to have that interesting of a geometry based on that. But let's just say that we did something a little different. Well, we'll just look at how we might do this. So what I think I would do is I would probably do like some sort of a remesh on this just to give it a little bit more geometry that we can work with. And if we do a couple more iterations on, I'm going to turn this off here and maybe turn this down a little more, something more like that there. Just to give us a little bit more geometry to work with, something like that maybe. You don't even need the iterations. Yeah, something along those lines there. Cool. So now we've got this little bit denser mesh that we could run this across. And what we could do is we could, actually, sorry, I'm just going to leave this over here. And we could do another mop spread fall off. And that should work across, yeah, so if we do connectivity, this should work as well. And if we do start points, let's see here. Where's 0? 0's up at the top there. So I'm just going to pick that again, I guess. And I'll turn these off and let's just see what this, preview that. There we go. We can see that now is actually spreading across the surface kind of in a more expected way where it's not just kind of this round animation. It's actually spreading it across. And one really kind of nice thing here is that you can, just kind of move this until it gets all the way covered. So you can kind of just animate this spread. You can change the width of the fall off, some nice little tools there to get that working. So this you could obviously do like as is, and then what would it be? MOPs apply attributes, I think. No, this is hello again. All right, so sorry, I'm just trying to remember what the name of that node is. It's not the apply attributes. It is. Sometimes if I look at them these ways, it's a little easier for me to. Is it apply attributes? Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just thinking of this the wrong way. Template points. I don't want to do any of those. Could we copy MOPs fall off here? Maybe. No, because this is, yeah. I guess we could just do an attribute transfer. That should work. Should work just fine. I think in this case, maybe an attribute transfer is all that's required. There we go. We can already see that that's working. So I'll just make sure I'm just selecting MOPs fall off. Wait, what just happened there? I thought we just had it. Oh yeah, yeah, it is working. Okay. There we go. Sorry, that was a little different for some reason. All right, so if we did the same thing here, if we did spread and then 60 with the full spread, something like that, and then hit the button here, that would do more or less the same thing. Oh, it's going the other way, right? Yep. I just have to remap that. So we're going to fit this 1 to 0. There we go. There we go. Something like that, right? So we've got our condensation that's starting to, we've got some options here for how we might want to make this work. So there we go. Good. So we've got a couple different options there on how you could conceivably make this, type of a setup. So cool. We've got this little like spring type thing here, which is kind of interesting. I think what I'm going to do is just transfer the, I'm just going to have this in there and you can look at that if you want to. But in this case, we're just going to use the one that we had from before, that one there. Yep. And we'll just use that. There we go. Cool. Easy enough. All right. So we have some spheres and things like that. So let's see if we can't do some movement along this geometry. So there is a MOPs move along mesh that we should be able to do here. So this is going to take our packed primitives, and I think what I'd like to do is I'm actually going to try to maybe use this mesh here. Before we worry about all of this stuff, actually, let's just pull this off. And yeah, I don't think this is animated. No, it's not. In fact, I think I want to change this a little bit, make some of these a little smaller, just like that. There we go. There's some that were just maybe a little too big. So let's grab our packed primitives here. I'm going to move these down because I just sort of want to work with this just at its rest state where nothing's like animating or anything yet, just to make sure that this is all working properly. So let's see if we can attach it to that mesh. Right. So we get a little error here because we can see the input mesh has no orient or an attribute. So obviously we want to do that. So let's add a normal. I hit caps lock there for some goofy reason. So let's do that. Grab a normal attribute. That's probably not going to be enough for it. So let's do the same thing that we did before where we got the N and the up. So instead of normal, let's do our polyframe. Let's do that. And I think if we do this and this, yes, now it is happy. Now it is happy. So let's see what we can do here. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. MOPs orient mesh for that. Perfect. Let's see here. Interesting. Oh, cool. That's great. I didn't even realize that was in there. Thanks. Thanks, MOPs. Thank you. So that would be a great option as well. So let's see here. Visualize the up vector. There we go. I was like, why is that not showing? Okay, there we go. Make the frame orthogonal. Great. So this is going to do more or less the same thing. It's just got a bit more control. You can see that obviously we're using some of the same concepts here, but you could take, I think you could take the N and the up to create an orient attribute from that. So you could take, it's kind of will do a whole bunch of different things for you in one step. So we could certainly just use this instead. Here we could say compute from polygons. And I think this should look relatively similar. Yep, there we go. Those are our up vectors that we're looking at there. And then if we turned on our normals as well, those would be in there. Interesting. Let me see. I'm going to make those a little smaller because they're a bit on the large size. There we go. That's a bit easier to look at. So now you can see that just like before, we have these kind of this frame here where we have N and up. And if we look over here, we're going to have the same setup basically. We can also make that frame orthogonal. So what this should be doing, I believe, is it is going to move along that axis. So just curious what some of these things do. Let's see here, enable simulation. All right, I'm going to disable that. So let's see here. Forward vector, we have forward vector speed, random speed, and we have our fall off attribute that we can enable or disable. All right, so it looks like these are all kind of pinching towards certain points. And what I would like to do is I think control this a little bit. Because right now these are all, I believe if we look at this mesh, these are all going to try to bunch into these like spots where these are intersecting. If I'm thinking about this correctly, that should be what's happening here. So if we just template that. Yeah, you can see these are all moving along the mesh, and then anywhere where these are sort of all bunched in one spot, they're all going to be trying to hit that. They're going to basically those are like suction, like little portals. Use the up vector. Yeah. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm guessing that's Henry, unless MOPs has become sentient, but I'm pretty sure that's Henry there. But it actually, to me, makes sense that the up vector is the direction that it's going to move. So let's just use some of these things to our advantage, right? So we have this move along mesh here, right? And we know that it's going to push it in that direction. And right now it's pushing it into these little like vortices, like these little black holes basically where they're just getting stuck. So instead of using it to compute from the polygons, let's actually give it some sort of an attribute that it can use. And here, I think what I'm going to do is actually make this just a little bit of a smaller mesh. I'm going to turn the normals off and let's just see what we get here. I just want this to be a little bit more detailed, something maybe like that. That looks good. I just want it to have a little bit more spots where it could have some interesting movement kind of applied to it. So what this is doing is it's pulling these attributes from this mesh and using that to push these along, right? So again, this is going to do the same thing where they're going to get kind of sucked into little vortexes, and there's probably more of them because there's more polygons. So instead, let's just try to change this a little bit. So instead of using the compute from polygons, let's use N and up. And I think at this point here, we can just use this as an example. They should all just move upwards, right? And just move along. So that's cool. That's sort of doing something interesting already, right? We've got them all moving upwards. So that's fun. Obviously, we'd want it to be, let's see, we'd want to set an up vector that would be something like -1, right? And do that as well, right? So we could do that. And actually, I'm seeing here that there's some noise patterns in here. That's pretty cool. So let's do this. Let's give it some random frequency and just a little bit of amplitude maybe. Maybe something like that. What's our blur going to do? Is that going to smooth these out? Okay, yep. So we could kind of play around with that, see what we get into here. So maybe something like that, make a bit more noise, add in just a touch of blur just to kind of make it do something interesting. And now we should see that these are going to kind of move down, you know, down the can like this, right? Obviously that's not what we want. We don't want them all to be moving, but I think, let's see here. Yep. You can see that we can actually, sort of influence these with their MOPs value, their MOPs fall off values. So what we could do here is, I think there's a MOPs remap fall off. Now I believe that in the documentation there is reference to the attribute. Sorry, I was reading the chat and forgot what I was doing. There's attribute remap as well, and these are going to be relatively similar at this point. You can use either or. They should both do something fairly similar, but the nice thing is the remap fall off is already set with the attributes that we want, so let's just use it. Why not? And we'll just kind of stay in our world here. So preview the fall off. Let's remap this, right? Because right now we're using this to rescale these values. However, we want them, I'm going to turn these little visualizers off. We want them to actually we want them, the big ones, to move the most and the little ones to move the least. Another thing I might do here is just make a few less big ones. So let's see here. Sorry, I'm just kind of playing around with this and seeing what this might do for us here. Maybe we'll make a few smaller ones like that. Maybe something a little bit more like that. And I am going to up the count a bit more now that we have a lot of tiny ones like that. So maybe something more like that is better. And so this is getting interesting. So we're getting somewhere here. So let's take the remap fall off, follow along mesh, right? So we've got this. Sorry, this is our current map. And if I'm remembering correctly, white should be fully active and the blue are like kind of at 0, right? So if we looked at, say, let's see, if we just select, oops, what just happened there? We do select by points. Can we just select this guy here? Hello. Let's see, view, only show selected. There we go. So if we look at the MOPs fall off on this one, it's 0, right? We actually want that to be 1. So we want to remap the fall off the other way. So let's do this, and we'll take this and go the other direction with it. So if our input is 0, we want our output to be 1. And if our output's 1, we want it to be 0. And what I'm going to do is really kind of... I'm going to really push this remap so that we're getting most of them blue and only a few of them to be like this kind of total white. So most of them are going to be sort of staying still mostly here. So let's do that. And then, yeah, something like this. We want a few of them to be like, really moving, but other than that, so like maybe here, I'm just going to kind of play with this a little bit. So maybe something like that. Let's try that, because now all of these dark blue ones are, let me do this, show only selected. All of the dark blue ones are going to be the ones that are set to 0. And the white, that one's going to be that's the biggest. There's a couple that are white. And then from there, they're kind of randomly assigned values back from that. So I don't know. We'll do something like this and see where we get with it. But this fall off is now going to tell this move along mesh how it should be working. And in fact, with this orient mesh here, actually, I think I'm going to turn off the blur. I don't think I want to do that. So, because I actually want it to be a bit noisier and more kind of chaotic. So here's this. I'm just wondering if I can turn off that visualize. Pop, 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 pop. No. Okay, that's fine. All right, let's do that. So now what should happen is that only those points should kind of really shoot down to the bottom here, right? And you obviously are going to have to come up with a way to kind of cull these points when they get to the very bottom of this geometry here, because obviously they're kind of just dripping down like so, and they get kind of stuck at the end here. Might be able to think of something for that. I'm not sure if there's a simple answer there. But let's turn the speed even down a little bit more, because they're still kind of moving pretty quick. So I kind of like that, where they're sort of moving slowly along. Now the other question is, I think the tricky thing that we would want to do here is if two of these points were close enough, you would want to merge them, right? So that is a little tricky. And for that, you might actually need to get into a true solver setup. I'm just trying to think if we could do that through Vexpression. Might be, no, that's only going to work for the parameters. Wonder if we could do that in a solver, like a solver node. I know it's a solver in a solver. Does that even work? Does that work? I don't think it does. Just thinking if that's possible. Anyways, let's just kind of continue along with this type of a situation here first, and then maybe we'll go back and revisit that. I think I want this to be a bit even more noisy. Oh, that's cool. We can do a little bit of offset there. Don't want the amplitude to be any more. That's probably fine. Something like that, maybe 0.1. Let's up the frequency of this a little bit more, just to make it even a little bit more chaotic, and see what that gets us. Just trying to think if there's anything else here. Technically, that would probably adding a little bit more into that. Okay, let's try that. Let's see how that looks. So let's look at this as a surface, like so. Yeah, it might be a little too slow. Let's double that. Yeah, so now we've got a little bit of fluid, you know, little drips coming down here and stuff like that. So now we're starting to get that idea working. I've actually done some like of these types of condensation things before, just kind of from scratch, like doing it all by hand. And one thing that you notice is that there's little drops that kind of come after them. And I wonder if we could, yeah, what you could honestly do is something. All right, so let's do this. Let's see here. What could we do? What could we do? Do we have a start frame here? Yeah, we do. All right, so let's try this now instead. Let's do this here. I'm going to take these since we've kind of got that working. I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. That's not going to work though. All right, let me just think of where we are here. So this is going to go boom, like so. Oh, what's happening there? Why did that? Oh, is that that's because I have the points on? Yep, there we go. Cool. Then with the spring, boom. Okay, so let's do that, and then we will let's add in some more frames here. Maybe we'll do 144. So that's going to go across, and then maybe at frame 72 is where we'll start that simulation. So have our mesh up here. That is working with this. We could get the spread fall off from that as well if we wanted to, whatever. But what we're going to do is let's take the, let's see here. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this attribute, right? Because we can store this attribute through this whole setup. So let's take this remap fall off and say, instead of MOPs fall off, let's say, we'll say sim fall off or something like that. And now that should come all the way through this and be at the very bottom here. Let's take a look and make sure we still have that attribute. If we hit play here, and if we look S for sim, we should have that. There we go. There's our sim fall off. So that'll be perfect. That's what we're going to use to make this whole thing work. And then over here, I'm going to grab the remesh node for our orient mesh. That's going to do the same thing we were doing before. And now the tricky part about this is that this is going to want to simulate from the MOPs fall off. So instead, we are going to use sim fall off, I think, for both of these. Let's try that. Oh, that worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. That's cool. Well, that's fun. So you could do it that way. You could also have it wait to start dripping until like, let's say that finishes at 60. Maybe we'll just change the solver setting to delete the channel on this, start this at 60, and that should now... Oh, what in the world was that? Oh, well, that's weird. Why did it do that? I'm sure there's a reason it's doing that. That would make sense if I think about it. It's probably that it's... Well, it worked fine, actually, the way it was. I was just like, oh, we can give that some time to chill, but it actually works great like this, I think. So that's pretty fun. So let's take this and, hey, Tom, welcome. Thanks. Yeah, it is pretty nifty, I think. You could just tack an operation. Oh, sorry. I missed that earlier to cull those points at the bottom. Yeah, that could certainly work if you like yeah, I wonder if you could yeah, actually you probably could do that after the fact now that you're saying that. The only thing is it wouldn't really speed the particles up at all, which does kind of stink, but at least it would like get rid of them along the path of it, you know, if you let's take a look at that. But something that Henry mentioned earlier was you could tack on an operation to cull or group the points inside the existing solver. Yeah, for sure. It's open source. Yep. So we could go in here and start messing with stuff in here. Where is that solver? There it is. So this is the solver here, and we've got our simulation and all that stuff. Here's all of our fun expressions and that sort of thing. I'm not going to go in there and start tweaking all that stuff. I think it'll be fine. We certainly could go in and manipulate some of those things in there as well. I mean, it's all sitting here for us. You just right click, allow editing of content. There we go. But that is actually an interesting question. Let's circle back to that in a second, because that is sort of an interesting idea to like, sort of take points that are close together and maybe do some sort of a, And the only problem is once because they wouldn't really know each other exist. Wonder if we could do could maybe actually do that. Sorry, let me do this. Allow editing in here. Wonder if we could. This would be the previous frame. This would be the current frame. All right, let me think about that for a second while we're doing this other stuff. So, it's kind of cool. We got a little condensation type thing going there. Neat. Let's now make this a little bit nicer for us. Let's actually like tweak and edit this a little bit. So we should be able to get a VDB from polygons. I think we'll use a VDB type setup here to do this. Boom, boom, boom. Just unpack them there and do that. So that'll just turn this into actual geometry for us to mess with. Here's our VDB. So let's see what would make sense here. Sorry, I don't want to go too crazy and brick my computer, but that probably is okay. Maybe we'll do something like that. Certainly not going to be the fastest operation in the world, but you know, it's doing its thing. Okay, so let's do that, and let's get rid of that. Let's do a polycap. Nope. Polyfill's probably smarter, right? I think that's actually going to do some mesh. Yeah, let's just do triangles. Triangle fan, I mean. Won't deform that. There we go. And just give us some geometry to work with. Maybe I'll create a reference copy of that. And that way they'll be similar. Let's see. SDF subtract, I think. And I think what we're going to want to do is a SDF smooth. Something like that. That'll give us that fun geo. Yeah, cool. I mean, it's not the fastest operation in the world. But we've got our drips and all that type of thing. And we could just do the standard VDB convert, the end, put it back to polys. There we go. We could just do maybe a little bit of adaptivity, just so it's not, oops. Whatever. I mean, you don't have to either. You could just leave it as is. Just let it move through the VDB like so. We're going to get those little things like that. Get some weird little drops. Okay, so I wonder if we could go inside of that solver and make those sort of get stuck together in some interesting way. Let's give it a shot. Why not, right? Because that would sort of finish off this in a really pleasing way. The other thing I wonder if we couldn't just do is you could probably just do a you know, to start this off, you could have just done another like transform modifier here or something and done a fall off vertically and just remap that so these top ones just were like basically invisible. Just scale is 0, just scale them all the way down. Certainly be possible as well. And then you could you could possibly do a little something in here to delete any points that are down at the very bottom here, and you'd never see that the original ones just delete right off the bat. And then yeah, anyways, just some thinking. But let's see if we can't get this to work. So go inside of here. Okay. What are we viewing here down here? So here we're applying translate and rotate. To those. Okay. So this is... Okay, so this is the previous frame. Okay, I see it's giving us the sim fall off here. That's what's being copied over. Relaxing the point wrangle here. Okay, so could we do something like a fuse for these points? Maybe. Let's see. Let's see if we couldn't do that. Now we would have to do them within a radius. And it wouldn't be P-scale, I don't think. Be within... Actually, let me do this outside first. Not trying to do this on a sim. I'm just curious how this is going to work. All right, that's completely snapping everything. Oops. Oh, right. These have a P-scale of 1 because I had the sphere up here scaled down. So if this was like that, can I set my P-scale in here? Instancing. Uniform scale. That should be it. Should flow right through that still. Great. All right, let's just make sure that that's still working. Wait, why are we... Oh, right. We're just seeing the points. Not actually seeing the geometry. There we go. Wonder if that was the problem there. All right, so let's look at P-scale here. Oh, those are all at 1. Is it scale? Oh, it's scale. Yeah, that's the goal to remove. Yeah, other than that, I think it's kind of working and doing its thing. Zach, sorry, I didn't see your message there. I was a little in deep in my brain. Yeah, that would be the goal at this point. I'm just trying to think if there's a straightforward way to do that. So the scale is, let's see. I'm surprised that that is not changing the P scale. Interesting. Is there something I have on that is not? Hmm. Yeah, so I think what we could do is kind of twofold. I think we could fuse the points together, right, and just get rid of them. But then I think we could also possibly even add those two attributes together to increase the fall off value and then therefore move it even a little quicker, I think, which could be cool. But we're going to take that one step at a time here. But yeah, that is kind of the idea. I don't know. All right, let's do scale and P scale in here just so we can see them both. I wonder if... I beat you to it. Oh, interesting. I mean, that... yeah, it would be a fun HDA. Yeah, the attribute I transfer idea, it does probably make sense. Although what you could do is just, instead of fusing them, we could just uncheck that, right? And now all of the points are in this one position, right? So all the points are still there. They're just in one position. So to your point, that would sort of work. I think. I'm just trying to think of this a little bit here. Oh, interesting. Weight attribute, that would be the output position of the maximum weight. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, this is work. This is doing some cool things. Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Yeah, there's some interesting things here that maybe these are new things. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's see here. We've got attributes to snap. Oh, nice. Okay, that's what we're going to use as well. So, let me think about this. We need to change the P scale over as well, so that change this. Is that going to mess everything up? If we change the P scale, let's see here. I'm just going to use a wrangle. Sorry for the vex, but we're going to use a wrangle just because it'll be quick enough to do. I am just going to do F at P scale equals V at scale dot X. Did that destroy the world? What happened here? No, everything's fine. Is it Interesting that those scales are changing. Oh, because they're changing because the simulation, right? Right. That's why they're changing. I'm like, why are those scales changing? It's really weird. Okay, that worked. It just took this. There's uniform scale, so we'll just take the P scale from this, and let's see what happens here. Oh, yep, it's sort of working here. All right, so let's do this. Let's sum the sim fall off maybe. And yeah, let's check that one. Sim fall off. That probably won't do too much in most cases, but it's interesting to think about nonetheless. They would only speed up if two particles that had a little bit of fall off came in contact with each other. So anyways, we'll think about that in a second. So that's kind of interesting. What about oh, that's so cool. Huh. So the P scale isn't going to change anything. So we need to do something with the scale. Maybe. Let's try this. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's try it. How about just do a sum of scale? Let's just see what happens here. It's going to get crazy, but let's see what happens. I'm trying to see where one of these points is going to like suck together to another one. What? Why aren't those working? Sorry, just looking at these, trying to figure this out. Oh. Plunk. That one is doing something weird. Clunk. Not really doing what we want to do here. Oh, because there's a weight attribute that isn't. All right, so let's do this. Let's turn that off. No. I'd have to probably play around with this a little bit more. But it's sort of an interesting idea. I think it certainly would be possible to do. Probably would be better done with something like Vex. But there is a lot of interesting things that could be done here. Now, I'm curious if these sums are actually changing at all. Like, are we actually... Huh. So we are actually getting some changes in the scales, but it doesn't... Maybe it's not actually visualizing those for some reason. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Yeah, see, they're not changing in size, so that's kind of weird. What about this? What if we just do it with average value? Yeah, like this point here, if we select that. Yeah, it's not really working properly there. Is there an intrinsic for these? Maybe there is. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, it's probably like, I bet you it's like some sort of intrinsic value. I'm surprised though. I would think that the scale would do it. I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I guess maybe it would. Yeah, it just seems like it's not really doing what I would want it to do there. Where the scale is kind of building along itself. But hold on. Is that because it's something like this where we should be applying the attributes to it? Ooh. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So what it's doing there, I think it's actually... let me just turn this off for a second. Oh, we could do that. I think it's because I was setting the scale here that it was actually applying the scale there as well. Oh! Hey now. That's taking those attributes and setting these based on them. that's working actually. Okay. Okay, interesting. So these are definitely snapping way too far. But it's kind of interesting. It's sort of doing something right. It's not totally working properly, but certainly interesting. I mean, the problem there is like those get really big, and so those all get sucked into one big huge thing. These kind of are doing stuff. And this might freak it out, but let's see. No. I just wish there was a way to like so it's not in the solver, that's why. So just like what I would recommend for anybody is Henry's blog that he put out. I actually posted it on the Discord, so I'd take a look at that because what we're doing here is all in SOPs right now. But once we go inside of here, that's kind of where the dynamics magic will happen, right? Because when this gets run through here, that's what we're doing. We're running frame by frame by frame. But out here, it doesn't know about previous frames or anything like that. So as we run this, these things get bigger, right? They're going, oh, maybe you're talking about just in general, this like spring modifier I have here where they kind of go like that. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Like that. That's just a little spring thing that I had it do. Kind of unnecessary and probably adding difficulty to this. In fact, we could just turn that off if we wanted to, just to kind of bring that variable out of it. But the problem I'm still seeing here is that these fuses are not fusing the way I would expect it to. Yeah, so with the fuse causing that, the reason that those are getting so gigantic there, and the reason we need this mops apply attributes is because it's taking all of those things that we're creating here in this fuse, which are like summing things and all that kind of stuff, and it's allowing for those to actually be applied to the primitive intrinsics. So it's trickier to move pack primitives around than one might otherwise think. Oh, also, you may not know that if you alt-click one of these dots, I think if you cut this, it's going to stay. I never knew that. I just found that out like a week ago or something. I don't know. It's like if you cut this, I think it disappears. Yep. Anyways, there we go. So yeah, so the droplets are combining into big drops because they're all close together and they're snapping. And when they're snapping, they're merging their. This is fusing. If I just do like sum, it's going to fuse them all together into one point, and it's going to sum all of their scales together. So that is what that's what's happening there. So those points are all kind of summing together their scales because they're within its piece. It's within the scale radius. I don't know why this is acting so strange. Like I would expect. Hello? Oh, right. We're not updating the P scale there. Okay, so let's try this. Let's do that with P scale. I just don't understand. Like, so these 2 points right here, I'm like really confused by this because these 2 points are like snapping together there. I'm like, why? For what unknown reason are they doing that? I'm also going to do an attribute adjust here just to set these P scales back to 1. I don't know why constant value is going to go to 1 there. Cool. So I don't know why those are jumping when they're so far apart like that. It's so bizarre. Maybe the P scale is different than the scale for some reason. I mean, those are really, I don't know. Just trying some stuff here. Yeah, I don't know why. Right. No, yeah, I get that. Yeah, so Tom's just saying when the snap is searching for other sphere, is in the right radius for it to snap. So when it's out of the snap radius, it returns to its original scale. Yep. The question is why? So this like particle right here, if we look at that, I'm just going to say average value, for example, here. I don't know why, like, see there, right there, those are snapping and unsnapping. They're not, like, it's not going to that, position. I don't understand that because why does it think it's out of its radius right there, but there it's in? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, those should be, like, barely touching at that frame. So there's something I'm missing here. I'll have to think about this a little bit more. So instead of just sitting here and watching me kind of go through this, I think that's probably a good place to end this. We've got it more or less working. I think you certainly could do some more with this and kind of push it a bit further. It's good to know that this MOPs apply attributes, like thinking about the way that works as well, is interesting because what it's doing is making sure that the average, there's a couple different ways that fuse can work, right? So you can take it with the output position average values, and what that's going to do is it's going to take the average position between those two and just kind of center it between them. So let's see if we can find maybe an even better example of that. Oh, I'm going to turn off maybe fuse snap points. So let's see here. What's a good example of this? Yep. So right here, let's look at these two over here. It's a pretty good example. They're pretty isolated. So this happens with a few different points here. It's kind of snapping around because it's... Oh, maybe that's the problem, is that it's looking at too many other... I don't know. Anyways, so what it's doing there, like right there, it's snapping between those 2 points and getting an average between them. So if we turned this off, we'd see that's where they are, just like that. See, that's the difference with the fuse. So it's snapping to an average point between the two of them. And then the output value is summing them. If we turned this off and went back to this, it won't change at all. If we turn this on and say scale and sum, now you'll see that those are changing. So it's getting bigger. So it's summing those values together as we snap between them. So the average position is going between them like this. What we could do is we could use some sort of weighting, which was kind of interesting. We could do like a weighted average based on the sim fall off, which is how big each of those particles are technically, because that's how we were running our simulation. And we could have this. So now this small one is basically snapping over to the large one at this point and scaling up from there. So now the large one isn't moving at all because it has pretty much all of the weight. Now, if there's a relatively equal weight between the two, they will sort of average in between. You could also do weighted. Oh, no, I wasn't doing that. Okay. This would be where it's going to take the maximum weight. Yep. So that's going to take it based on the maximum weight position. So it'll just stay in its current course. So maximum weight and weighted average will be similar, but slightly different. So some of them with maximum weight, any of the biggest ones are just that's going to be where they kind of suck to. But if you used weighted average, that's going to allow for some of them to kind of meet in the middle still if they're in close similar size. So I wonder if we could also do some for sim fall off here as well. Yeah, like, see, the weird thing is that all of these here are like jumping together, which is really strange because those are definitely not within their scale of each other unless we're doing like multiple like loops of this, which I don't like. Think this only does one, and then that's it. Like, it does one pass of snapping, and those are not even touching, and these ones certainly aren't touching. So why those are snapping together, I'm not sure. And the P scale should work. Unless it needs to be half of that. Maybe that's the diameter. Sorry. The P scale is calculated before the fuse. This, I'm resetting the P scale so we don't write it here. If we did, this would make them all basically invisible because I've changed the P scales. So coming out of here, the P scale is all 1, and I'm using the fuse to find the radius attribute from P scale. And then, yeah, so it's a little bit of like weirdness there happening. Okay, hold on. Maybe this is what I wanted to do here. Oh, baby. That's something. We're getting somewhere here. Hold on a second. I mean, something's happening here. Oh, that's way more promising. Maybe that was it. Yeah. Okay. So let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try it. So the good news is that the MOPs apply attributes, I believe, is in here already. Let's do this. Allow editing of contents. Let's come in here. See, there's the MOPs apply attributes. So that's going to do most of what we're trying to do here, except for scale, which I do actually think I want to do. So let's see. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to put this inside of here. because this will now calculate that every frame. And it's going to run the scale sim fall off, do all of this stuff. Let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. What's the worst that's going to happen? No, Zach, it's fine. It's fine. I'm kind of going all over the place too, man. I'm a bit all over the place. Let's check that on as well. I'm editing this MOPs move along mesh live here. So we'll see what happens if this just totally breaks or, oh, I should probably visualize that, huh? Let's see here. Nope, that's not working. All right, let's undo that. What? Why did we not? Why are you not doing what I want you to do? Oh, nope, never mind. I'm sure there's a reason why that's, let's see here. Why would that not be working? Don't see it snapping anything at all here. Let's just watch this output here and see what happens. Yeah, like when we watch this come down here, should suck that other one into it. There's like one right here that one should get sucked in as well. Why is it not? Oh, I see. Because we don't have any scales in here. Why is that happening? Why are there no scales? Where are the scales? Okay. There's the scales. There's scales. So those are coming in from... All right, so what I could do is update... Let's do update P scale and scale. I think that'll work now. Let's see. Yeah, that looks like that's working. He's freaking out down at the bottom there, but... Ooh, Oh, nope. All right, I'd probably have to think about this a little bit harder, but I think we're sort of in the right frame here. What we could just do is instead of worrying about this here where we're summing them, we could do that. So instead of doing any summation and trying to scale them all together, maybe we can just pull them along instead of like fusing them. The weight attributes, cool. Let's try that. And we'll turn off this, set this back to multiply, do scale. That's what it was before. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, me too. My brain's just about done with this. I feel like I'm close, but there's something I'm missing here because they're obviously like they're now when they get close together they come down to the bottom, but they're freaking out. So I'm not sure why that's happening. Oh, you know what? Maybe instead of that, maybe we'll just do scale instead of p scale. Just do that. No. Well, anyways, this is sort of conceptually. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would be amazing to, I'm just going to set this back to match the current definition so it's not all broken. That should still more or less do what we were hoping for it to do. This is, I'm just going to make a little box over here for people to take a look at and say, we're snapping close droplets, something like that, and just say this is a WIP. So you can always play around with that if you want to. Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome. Thanks for chatting, Tom. I think that was super helpful to have you chatting along here. All right, I'm just gonna say outmeshed drops just to kind of give us a little nice end there, but hopefully this is interesting to kind of see what we could get into here. I know it's a little bit just kind of fiddly stuff at this point, but I think it's an interesting look at how some of these tools can be used. I think especially this move along mesh is kind of interesting. I think it really has some potential to be able to do some really pretty neat things without having to go too crazy into like building a simulation to do something like this. Obviously it's all kind of built for you here. Now there is some of these things that, I don't know, maybe would be worth looking into it. I don't know if there's like maybe like a dive target or something that you could go in and edit little things. I don't know. Maybe that would make sense. Maybe not. But, it's kind of an interesting take on something like this. That's maybe a little different than how you normally might use it, but you can certainly do some really neat little animations with this and with fall offs and things like that in order to make these drips sort of do some fairly realistic little behaviors here. I mean, it's not perfect, but it certainly gives a pretty interesting, end result here. So what happened here? Oh, it's like, is my thing broke? So anyways, I think if anybody has any other thoughts or any questions or anything like that, I'm happy to try to answer them if I can. I don't know if I am the best person in the world to answer all of your questions, but I can try some, and we can always try to figure them out long term. But yeah, please, if you ever are interested in playing around with these files, making something more interesting with them than these examples that I do, 2 hours, you're a little limited to what you could come up with. So feel free to go onto the Discord and grab the files there. There's a channel that has a link to the HIP files and all that stuff. It's a Google Drive link, and you should have access to. Everybody should be able to get access to it. So you can go in there and check out all the past the files from those past streams. Somebody suggested that I should have a way to link those together so that like if we've had there's been some suggestions and things like that, if those suggestions ever get made, to link them together to the stream and stuff like that. And that's, I think, a pretty cool idea. I just got to find the time to do that and go through and find them all. But I think it would be really interesting to check that out, to do something like that. But they're all there. They're all dated. So if you find a Hangout from one of those dates, you can go back and see the video of it. And should be fairly easy to do, I guess. I mean, they're all dated and things like that. So some of the first ones I did them a little differently, the dates and names and things like that. So those might be a little harder to match up, but the newer ones should be fine. So anyways, I think that's where we're going to kind of wrap it up for the evening. Thanks to Pascal for the great suggestion of doing some condensation. I'd never thought of doing something like that with MOPs. And I think this is a really cool example of how you could do that. And honestly, you could do a lot of this without even having to get too far into simulation. It was really only the last little bit. I mean, technically you're doing a sim inside of that move along mesh, but you don't even really have to think about it too much. And a lot of what you can do you can get away with without having to worry too much about that. So anyways, I think that's a great place to end this stream for the evening. Thank you so much to everybody for joining and for chatting. It's always great to hear, your comments and thoughts and things like that. Obviously without that, this stream is a lot less interesting. So I appreciate that. And, really, thank you for your comments and for your conversation. So we will wrap it up there for the evening. On Wednesday, we will do some sort of standard Houdini stream that could be about any topic in Houdini, and isn't really motion graphics oriented, or MOPS motion operators oriented. But so if you have suggestions or thoughts for that, feel free to put them in the suggestion channel on the Discord as well. I think I probably know what I'm going to be doing, or at least I have a pretty good idea for what I'm going to do. But we'll see if there's any suggestions that come in that change my mind before then. So you never know. But I appreciate everybody's conversations and chatting, and looking forward to chatting again in a couple days. So thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and hope to see you on Wednesday. Have a good night, and see you then. Bye.